Hello everyone and welcome back to Field Trips Always End Terribly by Itslivybear on AO3. This will be chapter 10, When the Existential Dread Sets In. Summary: Aizawa tries something to get Izuku out of his funk. Aizawa was understandably worried for his kid, but he didn't expect it to get better overnight. This visit with Ragdoll was fruitful, if depressing. Truly, there is no better person to learn from than the person who originally had the quirk, after all. Still, he could see how this was breaking him, how his eyes filled with tears every time he glanced at the woman. Even her own words couldn't help. "Oh, kitten," she had said, cupping his face with one hand. "Think of it this way. I would much rather you have it than that man." It hadn't helped. Now he sat in the common room of the freshly completed dorms, staring at nothing. Aizawa shifted uncomfortably in the doorway, pursing his lips. He had a plan, something that would hopefully break the kid out of his funk, but it was still on its way. "You don't have to just hover, you know." He was jolted out of his reverie by the quiet voice. Midoriya hadn't turned to face him, eyes still glazed over and looking at nothing. "Sorry, I thought I was being quiet." "You were. I just know where you are." His head fell onto his knees when he pulled them up to his chest. "And I always will." Ah. His phone buzzed and he breathed a sigh of relief. "I'll be right back." He got no acknowledgement, but he didn't really expect one. Hopefully, this would work. Izuku was in a sort of haze ever since he'd gotten back from the hospital. He had been excited to see his quirk. He'd always loved quirks, after all, and a mental one was really cool. The ability to track people in their weaknesses was even cooler, perfect for a rogue, just like Sensei had promised. What a joke. The door opened, and he sensed Aizawa walked in with someone new. They pinged as someone he had seen since Sensei forced Ragdoll's quirk on him, since he had gotten the quirk. But other than that, he didn't know who it was. He slid his eyes over to see that one purple kid. He blinked. Hi? "Midoriya," Aizawa started. "This is Shinso Itoshi. He was moved to the hero course since you've been gone, and will also be here for a bit more training, since he's also behind." The guy, Shinso, scratched the back of his neck and looked sheepish. "Hey." "Great. I'm leaving you two to get acquainted." Without another word, Aizawa turned on his heel, leaving two panicked boys behind. "I'm sorry, I don't..." They both froze, looking at the other before Izuku ducked his head. "Sorry, you go." Shinso clenched his jaw. I don't really know why I'm here, but I brought a cat." Izuku's head shot up. "Wait, what?" Shinso took off his bag and unzipped it, reaching in and pulling out, in fact, a cat. A gray tabby. "Her name is Pigeon." Izuku scrunched up his face. "Pigeon? You name your cat after a bird?" Shinso came more into the room, plopping down on the couch next to him and offering the cat. He gingerly took her, setting her on his lap and stroking her softly. "Yeah, her meows sound like the noise Pigeon makes. And she's gray." Izuku snickered as the cat purred. "Sounds like a good enough reason to me." "Oh," he looked up guiltily. "I'm Midoriya Izuku. Sorry, I should have said." Shinso huffed with a slight smile. "I was aware." "Oh, right, the whole kidnap thing." He trailed off, stubbornly looking away, focusing on the cat. "Nah, the class talks about you sometimes." His head shut up. "Really?" The purple boy gave a nod. I noticed it pretty early. The class mantra when they want a confidence boot or whatever is for Midoriya or for Deku if you're Uraraka. Izuku could feel his face heating up and his hands flew to his cheeks. What? How would how would that give them confidence? Pigeon meowed and pawed at his arm. She really does sound like a pigeon cooing, he muttered. Shinso extended a hand to scratch her chin. Well, from what I gathered, they wanted you back, and they were going to be the best heroes they could be to do so. Izuku stilled and his vision blurred. He sniffed and felt Shinso stiffen next to him. Shit, I think I'm supposed to be cheering you up. Fuck, this isn't. Izuku caught him off by wrapping him in a hug, leaving a careful cavern between them so Pigeon wouldn't get squished. I'm sorry Tomura kidnapped you. Um, the other boy patted him awkwardly on the back, unsure of what to do. It's fine. No, I mean it sucks. They thought you could be a villain, or maybe Sensei just wanted to take your quirk. God, that would be a nightmare. I wouldn't wish that on anyone, and I'm just so scared of what the future is going to be like because I don't know anything, but I also know a lot at the same time, and I'm just so confused at what's wrong and what's right, and I don't know if I'm a villain now. He was wrenched back, hands on his shoulders, as he was forced to meet lilac eyes. Midoriya, no, you aren't a villain just because you were kidnapped by one. But, he blubbered, I learned from them, and I agreed with some of what Stain was saying. And Tomura is my friend, and he's definitely a villain, though I think he's been getting better, and I have a stone quirk. Shinso frowned. None of these things make you a villain. Hell, have those things make you a good person, or at the very least a resourceful one. Ragdoll is quirkless because of me. Based on what I've heard about this All for One guy, I highly doubt that, Shinso sighed. Plus, it kinda seemed like he gave you that quirk on a whim. He probably paid what will give Midoriya the most trauma, and went with whatever came up first. Izuku giggled a little, wiping away tears when Pigeon cooed insistently. He went back to carding figures through her fur. Sorry, Pigeon, I had a breakdown. Shinso snorted. After almost an entire term living with the League, you deserve at least 3. Izuku choked out a laugh again. Shinso? I'm right. He leaned back, lounging against the sofa. Hell, I need a couple just from getting kidnapped for less than a day. Well, he mused, it was a pretty bad day as far as being kidnapped goes. You're right, Bakugo was also there. That was finally what did him in, causing him to burst out laughing, barely able to keep a hand on Pigeon as he was racked with giggles and snorts. Even Shinso joined in with some chuckles. Come on, it wasn't that good. No, it's just, if Kachan heard that. Hold up, Kachan? Izuku nodded slowly, not liking the look in Shinso's eyes. We grew up together, and I never really grew out of the habit of calling him that. I am so calling him that the next time I see him. His eyes widened and he shook his head rapidly. No, you will definitely get murdered. Perfect. A surefire way out of the prison known as life. Izuku blinked and giggled again. Shinso, no. Life isn't a prison. It's just being at a Denny's at 3 a.m. on a weeknight. Shinso raised an eyebrow. I see. You get it. Please. He gave an exaggerated bow, or as much as he could, sitting on a couch with a cat on his lap. I was born into it. And that was your first mistake. Being born? Yes. Izuku sniffed again and wiped his eyes of any remaining tears. Thanks. Shinso raised an eyebrow. 4. Being here, I guess. I don't think this would have worked if any of my classmates can. came. Kat-chan was already here a few days ago, and while it was nice to yell at him, it wasn't exactly good for my mood. I didn't really have the chance to get to know many more people. Hell, at this point, I probably know Tomura and Kurogiri more than them. So, why was I different? He hummed. I don't know. Maybe because we just didn't know each other at all. Plus, there weren't any expectations, I guess. He glanced down at Pigeon and back at Shinso. Plus, you brought a cat. Shinso snorted. I see the way to your heart is through feline companionship. Of course! He managed to keep a straight face for all of 2 seconds before smiling softly, ducking his head as he did. They sat in silence for a few minutes, simply petting and playing with Pigeon. Your quirk is brainwashing, right? He could feel Shinso tense beside him. Yeah, I think that's pretty cool. You do? He nodded, still not looking at his maybe friend. I always admired mental quirks. Sure, All Might was cool, but mental quirks were always so neat to me as a quirkless kid. Something non-physical. Something like that was something I wanted more than anything in the world, because my brain has always been probably my greatest tool anyway. He pursed his lips. Guess I got my wish. He pressed on, not letting the other boy reply. Brainwashing is really neat because you can diffuse most situations without violence or get people out of panic attacks so they don't hinder heroes on sight. So, yeah, I think it's cool. You're going to make a great hero. Shinso was quiet for a moment. You really think that, don't you? He frowned and looked at the other boy. Of course. Why wouldn't I? Shinso smiled ruefully. I've been called a villain my whole life for this quirk, you know. Izuku snorted. Well, that's ridiculous. The quirk doesn't make the villain, or even the hero. It's your actions that count. He raised an eyebrow. And what have I done that's heroic? Izuku smiled. You certainly helped me. Shinso paused, stunned, before turning back to the wall. Sure. When Shinso and Midoriya came to training later that evening, Aizawa was pleased to note the smiles on each of their faces, even if they were both slight. Midoriya was back to talking animatedly with the other boy, from the sounds of it, about Shinso's quirk. Aizawa breathed a sigh of relief. The plan had worked. Alright, this isn't social hour, he grumbled into his scarf, eyebrow raised, but both boys could feel the lack of any actual heat in the remark. Shinso merely rose his eye, and Midoriya gave a cheeky grin. Yes, Aizawa-sensei. Aizawa chuckled internally. Brats. And there we go. So this was chapter 10 of Field Trips Always End Terribly. As always, please go give love to the original fic. It is amazing. And with that, I hope you all have a good night. I will see you all in the next chapter.